Welcome to Money Matters with Doug Jones, the personal finance show focused on moving you forward financially. For today's show, we're going to talk about reverse mortgages. I thought it was a timely topic because we're experiencing an increased demand for reverse mortgages as more and more Canadians are looking to use reverse mortgages to fund their retirement. So I thought we would go over the pros and cons, how you qualify, so you have a full understanding of how reverse mortgages work. And joining us today, we have a guest who's an expert, I would say, in the field, Yvonne Ziomecki, who is an executive vice president at Home Equity Bank, and she's the co-author of a book called Home Run, The Reverse Mortgage Advantage. Yvonne, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Doug. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, so as I started off, that reverse mortgages are becoming a really popular way of people funding retirement. I thought we would start with, can you explain to the viewers what a reverse mortgage actually is?
Absolutely. So a reverse mortgage is a regular mortgage, a product where you take some equity out of your home and get to do whatever you want to do with it. The only difference, the word reverse sometimes confuses people because with a reverse mortgage, you make no monthly mortgage payments. You actually make no payments until you move out of the house. You either pass away or you sell the house. So it's a mortgage with no regular payments. And the interest only has to be paid when the house is no longer in your name.
So that's why it's very popular for people because there's no payments and they are able to extract some equity. So you wrote a book about this to help explain this concept to people and the advantages of it. And I know the book goes into a lot of stories of situations you've encountered, but what was the motivation? Why did you decide to write a book to help explain this to people?
So there were a couple of things. One was it was the pandemic time, so things started changing and the value of homes became more and more important to everybody over the pandemic. People felt safe and secure inside their home. And I'm always frustrated with all this misinformation about reverse mortgages and people stuck in the circumstances that are in and thinking that there are no other options for them. There's nothing that they can do. And I thought, what a great opportunity. Use the extra time we have during pandemic because we're not traveling, not doing anything special, and give people a resource that they could use, they could refer to as they're thinking about their retirement finances and retirement planning. It has a lot of information. It's not just about reverse mortgages, it's about the real estate market. It's about the alternatives that people have in retirement that they should absolutely look into it. It's also about how to have conversations about money in families with aging adults, with aging parents. So those were kind of the key factors that made me sit down and work with Steve and put this book out because I thought it was very much needed. And it's written in a plain language, easy to understand, but people can refer to it whenever they need.
Okay. Well, I understand with the pandemic and some of the media attention around the long-term care industry that, a lot of people are looking to, as they say, age at home and access that equity, not just to fund their retirement, like the in-home costs, but also renovations and consolidations of debt, et cetera. So I thought we would sort of highlight like how the industry has significantly increased during the pandemic. And I was reading some reports that said Q1 of this year was 44% higher than Q4 of last year. And the year to date, it's 241% growth in reverse mortgages. Is that what you're seeing?
We're seeing phenomenal growth this year in the market, and it's driven by interesting things. So one of them is definitely people want to age in place, stay in the home. So people who were thinking about maybe selling the house or downsizing, it's difficult to downsize in this market with how expensive real estate is right now. So if you sell your house where you live, most likely you have to move far away to buy a new place and free up enough equity to help fund retirement. We're also seeing a lot of people are using the money to actually help their families, so adult children or grandkids, to get into the real estate market because everybody has this fear of missing out on buying their first home. So our customers are taking money out through CHIP and then giving it to their grandkids or their adult children to buy property. So that's very very interesting. And I think what we're going to start to see now as we're coming out of it, hopefully, is people are going to want to live their life, right? We haven't been able to do many things for a long time, and everybody's gotten older, has a little bit more gray hair, and people will want to travel. People will want to go through whatever was on their bucket list. And I think some of that, we're already seeing home renovations. We've been in our homes. If the kitchen is dated or the deck needs repair, what are you waiting for? What are we waiting for? I always tell people money is good for two things. It's good to enhance lifestyle and to enhance relationships. And this product can do both.
Okay. Well, I think that one of the things you've highlighted too is there's a lot of studies out there that show us Canadians, we really haven't been saving enough money to fund our retirement. And if, pensions, certain industries, civil service, teachers have pensions, but a lot of people don't have pensions. So then your retirement is going to come down to CPP, OAS, and whatever money you've put aside in a TSFA or an RSP. And I saw a study from BMO that said the average sort of person nearing retirement had about 178,000 in these retirement savings. So I did the math and sort of said, well, if that person was going to retire at 65 and wanted the money for 20 years, between CPP, OAS, and those retirement funds, it would give them around $2,100 a month, which is not really going to go very far in retirement if you're still trying to maintain the home and pay property taxes, et cetera. And so then I guess the situation is they're sitting on this house, and we've seen this rather dramatic increase in values in property. So you're sitting on all this equity, but you can't access it. So is that, like, I hear the story about helping kids get into the real estate market, but are you seeing a lot of people looking to supplement the income for the debt consolidation, the travel, the other things in life?
Yes, so that's pretty much the core constant that we see in our business. So people coming to us wanting to use the money, for example, to pay off existing debt. So about 40% of clients who come to us have some sort of debt. And it's really tough when you're 72 years old and you still have a mortgage and you're still making mortgage payments. So sometimes it's a mortgage, sometimes it's a line of credit, sometimes it's credit cards. And credit cards have, north of 20% annual interest. And you feel like you can never get out of that debt. And our customers sometimes, early days when they're struggling for money, because they don't have enough coming in a month, they dip into the credit card, but it never gets better. It only gets worse. So that part of our business continues, and people, because now their homes are worth a lot more money, they can borrow more, they can pay everything off. So the first thing that happens once you pay off, you free up a lot of money because you're no longer servicing that debt. You're not making your $500 mortgage payment or a $1,000 mortgage payment a month, and you can use that money for other things. So that's one thing that's very attractive for people. The other group of customers actually like to use the product to supplement their income. So exactly what you were saying, there's not enough of the government pensions that are coming in. Private pensions are not what they used to be. I don't have a company pension. Not many people have a company pension going forward. And savings, even if you've been saving with the low interest rate environment, those savings haven't been growing, right? It's almost like a double-edged sword. Mortgage rates are low, but so are interest rates on savings account. So people come to us. We have a product called Income Advantage, and it's a little bit like using your house as a pension plan. So you don't have to take a lot of money up front through CHIP. You can actually say, you can do your budget, you're on your own or with the planner, and then you can say, every month I'm kind of short $1,000, but in the winter months when the heating costs are higher, I'm short more like $1,500. And then we'll work with you and we'll say, okay, you're approved for $300,000, but you're going to draw out $2,000 a month, and it's going to go into your account. And that's basically like another type of pension. People really like that because, maybe they don't have big expenses that they need to use the money for, but life just is better when you can afford to buy groceries, when you can go out for wings with friends, when you can do a little bit of gardening. It doesn't have to be kind of monumental things, but it's nice to age with dignity doing things that you like to do.
Okay, and I agree with you. So now I'd like to explore how much can you get out of, like, I've seen the ads, I'm sure most people have seen the TV commercials, that you have to be over age 55 and you can access up to 55% of the equity. So the up to 55% says to me that you don't get it at age 55. It's probably an age thing. So can you go over that for our viewers?
Very smart. So let's say we're just going to keep it simple. So let's say it's $1 million house, because it's easy to do quick math on the $1 million house. So if you're 55 and you're coming to us with the $1 million house, you will probably get about 25%. You will be able to get approved for $250,000, and you don't have to take all the money at once, but that would be kind of the starting point. It'll also depend, obviously, on the type of house, that, you know, what it was appraised for, but we're assuming it's appraised for $1 million. Is it a single detached? Is it maybe a condo? That may have a little bit of an impact. That sweet spot of 55% of the equity, so $550,000 that you could get, only happens in your late 70s, because we want to make sure that we don't lend you too much money up front, and you know, everybody's living longer. My life expectancy is 84. So if we lend people too much money too early, then by the time they need to move out of the house, there may be no equity left. So it kind of protects us, and it protects customer, making sure there's always going to be some money left over.
Okay. Now, a lot of people are then going to start asking questions. And so I thought we'd just address them. If you take this money, does it affect my CPP, my OAS, my supplement? Do I pay any tax on it?
Absolutely not. So that's the best thing about this, is because it's your own money that's in you're kind of borrowing from yourself, really, from the equity that you have in your house. So we have customers coming to us saying, I have money in RRSPs, or I have money in a RIF, and my husband just had hip replacement surgery, and the old car is no longer suitable because he can't get in and out of the car. We need to buy a $50,000 vehicle. Well, we don't need to buy it. We want to buy a $50,000 vehicle. But if we take money out of our RSP or RIF, it's going to put us in the next tax bracket. That vehicle is going to end up costing more money, because we'll have to pay more tax. This is a really good way to get money out of the house, get the vehicle, have a better quality of life. So this money is not taxable. You don't have to report it on your income tax. It's really your own money that we're helping you facilitate using your own money.
Yeah, and it ties back to the principal residence capital gains exemptions, and that's why it's not including your income and we're not paying tax. Okay, so that's great. What I want to do next is I want to start to explore sort of the pros and cons, because like anything in life, there's always pros and cons. And how do you decide whether a reverse mortgage is right for you? And I know in your book, you've identified the 4 R's as a way of, is it right for you? So we're going to go to break. And when we come back from break, we'll go through the pros and cons and your 4 R's as to whether it's right for you. Welcome back to Money Matters with Doug Jones. Today we're talking about reverse mortgages. We're talking about the pros and the cons and how you qualify and whether it's right for you. And our guest today is an expert in the field, Yvonne Ziomecki, who is an executive vice president at Home Equity Bank, and she's a co-author of a book, Home Run: The Reverse Mortgage Advantage. And we've been talking about sort of how do you, some of the rules to get a reverse mortgage. And I said we would, after the break, we'd go over the pros and the cons. So Yvonne, let's start with the pros. We started to hit on some of them in the first segment, but let's go over the positives of having a reverse mortgage.
Absolutely. So number one positive is that you are able to age in place and stay in the house that you love, ideally, and not make any significant life changes in your retirement, because you're in the community that you like, your local grocery store, pharmacy, etc. So a reverse mortgage allows you to do that. There are no payments required. The only thing that we ask you to do is you need to pay property taxes, you need to pay home insurance, and the house needs to be in state of good repair, and it's not that difficult to accomplish. So, you know, you get to stay in your house, you're not making any payments, and you are enjoying your retirement. Hopefully you're more active, you know, your physical health, your mental health, it supports that. And what happens is you can stay as long as you want. We've been in business for over 35 years. So we started in 1986, and we still have customers from 1992. So they got CHIP in 1992 and they're still staying in the home because there's no expiry date. You don't have to requalify. If one of the spouses passes away, the other spouse can stay in the house as long as they want. So there's a lot of benefits to using this type of product in retirement versus some of the other options.
Yeah, and I think some of the other things we were highlighting is as you can withdraw the money as you see fit. So it doesn't have to be a lump sum. You could actually do a lump sum, or you could do it, string it out over a period of time. Yeah. And I also think we talked about the fact that there is no tax on it, and it's not going to affect any of your OAS, CPP, or supplement that you may be receiving, which I know people would be worried about. Yes. So I think those are all really positive things for people. You mentioned earlier, though, and I think this is also a positive, that if I borrowed, like you used the example of $1 million house, and you borrowed at 55, so you could only get 250,000 out of the house. As you got older, let's assume the house increased in value, because we've seen some rapid increases in value. Let's assume the house is now worth, I'm not 55 anymore, I'm 70, and the house is now worth 1.5 million. Is there ability as a positive to a reverse mortgage to increase the size of my reverse mortgage to reflect the increased equity and my increased age?
Absolutely, you got it. You could be out there educating people on the product. That's exactly what happens. So you come back and your house is worth $1.5 million, and we will rerun all the quotes for you. But because you are older, let's say you come back 10 years later, automatically you qualify for more money, and also because your house is worth more, than there's extra. So people come back to us later and they refinance and they top it up. And there's incredible flexibility, you touched on it, in how people take money. So sometimes all that a customer needs is just to pay off an existing debt, and then the money that's freed up, that cash flow, is more than sufficient for them just to carry on. So sometimes they do that. Sometimes they pay out a debt, and then they want a little bit of money on a regular basis. Or we have people asking for money on annual basis because they go to Florida for 4 months and they're renting a place for $10,000 a month. So they need to take out $40,000 so they can pay the rental fees in Florida. So there's a lot of flexibility. And I think, people used to think it's a loan of last resort. It's for people who are destitute. It couldn't be farther from the truth. Our customers have fantastic credit scores. They've looked after their money all their life. But life happens. They've helped families. Sometimes people get sick, just different circumstances, and they need access to something that's flexible. And the smartest decision they made is buying a house, because now they have options.
Okay, so lots of positives. What are considered some of the negatives of a reverse mortgage?
So a couple of things to think about. So if you have a lot of debt, on your property, number one, we may not be able to lend you money because you need to have sufficient equity. I would discourage people from getting a reverse mortgage when they owe a lot, because there's a reason. Somehow they got themselves into a position where they don't have a lot of equity. So is it bad decisions? Is it circumstances? Are they going to be able to reverse the trend? The other thing to think about is, if you are thinking of selling or moving in the short term, it may not be the right product for you, because there are prepayment penalties in year 1, 2, and 3. So why would you get a reverse mortgage, the conventional CHIP, if you were moving in a year? You're going to have to pay a penalty. That does not make sense. Now, we've solved for that. We've created a product called CHIP Open that has a higher interest rate, but it actually doesn't have any prepayment penalties. And it's a product we developed during the pandemic because we realized people do want options, and sometimes they're making quick decisions. They're selling businesses, they're buying businesses. A pandemic has put everything kind of upside down. So flexibility and options are very key and very important. Under negatives, it's not a negative to me, but people ask me about it all the time. People worry that there won't be any equity left at the end of the term or when they sell the house. So what we do, and we have great tools on our website on chip.ca, you can punch in your individual numbers and you can kind of see what happens in the forecast. And I'll give you a very quick example. If you have a $600,000 house and you borrow $100,000 through CHIP, At the end of the first year, let's assume interest is 5%. At the end of the first year, on that 100,000 that you borrowed, you owe $5,000 of interest. Now you have an option of paying it, or it can just get added to your balance. So let's say you're not paying it off, so it's 105 that you owe. Now that house that was worth $600,000 has appreciated in value by 5%, which is a national average over the past 15 years. So that house is now worth $630,000. So you have on day one you were 600 and 100. A year from now, it's 630 and 105. So you increased your equity by $25,000 just by staying in the home and not moving. So to people who worry that somehow this interest grows so fast that it erodes all the equity, it's just not true, because interest is only on the money that you take out while the entire value of your house continues to appreciate.
What's the average interest rate that a CHIP's going for?
It's 5.14% right now for a 5-year term.
And is it compounded?
Yes.
So so people understand, one of the perceptions of negativity could be that there's interest on interest as we go in future years.
Yes,
okay.
But the same thing happens with the value of your house. Right. Another 5% that it grows on the $630,000 that it was worth.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as the real estate market keeps moving, and the last year has gone insane, you're going to continue to have the equity. What would be some of the other disadvantages? Like, if a person dies and the house is still, now the state needs to deal with the house. I believe I was reading that there's certain timelines within which the mortgage the CHIP has to get paid out.
So the timelines are absolutely incredibly generous, I think. For people who move into a nursing home, we give people about 6 months. There's a lot of stuff that happens when you're making these big life transitions, and the last thing you need to be dealing with is emptying and selling and paying back a lender. And then, so that's 6 months. And when somebody passes away, we give family up to 12 months, because we will, probate,
right.
Family dynamics, but we don't get involved in the sale. We don't list the house. We just collect monies that are owed to us, and that's the end of the transaction.
Okay, so we've gone through some pros and cons. So now the person's sitting here going, okay, I got to decide if this is right for me. And I think you've got the solution for them, your 4 R's. So can we go through those? Yes,
absolutely. So my first R is to review. So everybody, regardless of age, should be reviewing their financial situation, and especially entering their retirement. So how much money do I have saved up? What's my cost of living? Where am I living? Do I like my house? Do I like my neighbors? How do I want, do I want to travel? Do I want to spend time with grandkids? I think that is a fundamental part of getting into retirement. And, I'm in my early 50s, and I'm thinking about what would I like my retirement life to look like, because there's still time kind of prepare and plan. So that's the first R, is just reviewing and being really, really honest. If you have debts, be honest with yourself. If you haven't saved up enough, it is what it is. You may have to alter your plans. The second one is research. So now that you kind of have an idea of what you want your retirement to look like, you may have to look into what it costs. So if you want a place in Arizona, or you want to rent in Florida, or maybe you want to downsize, you need to understand where you could go. So a lot of those things, or getting help into the house, getting a personal support worker coming and helping, or someone doing your meals, or a pool service. So the research part is really important. And with internet, it's endless. You can just go on and Google, how much does this cost? How much does this cost? Because I think, and the important part is that you do it yourself, because it gives you accountability, and you are kind of invested in that decision. So that's the review and then research. And I think what happens to a lot of people, once they, for example, research downsizing options, they realize how expensive it is to actually downsize. Or they realize that if they get a line of credit, there are different criteria for lines of credit than for CHIP. And it may not be as advantageous for them. So the third is reverse. Get a reverse mortgage. We ask everybody to go through and get independent legal advice to understand the documents they're signing, obligations that they have. And the 4R is relax. So as I said earlier, money is good to enhance lifestyle and relationships. And if you do it right, if you haven't saved up enough but you own your house, you have the option, you have all the tools, you can relax in your retirement, be happy in the home that you love, share some of the money with your family, and life is better.
Okay, and those are all highlighted in your book, correct?
Yes.
So the next question a lot of people are going to ask is, how do I get a hold of a copy of the book?
So there are a couple of ways you can get. I'm just looking for a copy of the book. So one of the ways that you can do is you can go to chip.ca and you can request a copy of the book. And then we're happy to give away a bunch of free copies of the book if you would like. And maybe we can provide a phone number at the end that people could call and they can phone us and we'll mail them a copy of the book. Does that work?
Yeah, I also believe the producer's also going to do something on social media with you to promote that giveaway. So I think that would be a great way of doing it. So just in summary, I thought I'd get some final comments from you. What would you like the viewers as their takeaway, their pros and cons, and if they're interested in a reverse mortgage?
I think the most important thing that I can say is that if you are thinking about your retirement, if you're thinking about your retirement finances, the most responsible thing that you can do is just investigate the options. It may not be the product for you. I'd never say that it's for everybody, but it's very empowering to know that you have options and what they can look like. Work through the scenarios, ask a lot of questions, and then make the decision that's right for you. We have tens of thousands of very happy customers.
Well, thank you very much for the discussion today. I think that the viewers got a lot of understanding on reverse mortgages. I'd also like to thank the viewers for joining us today. As usual, if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions for future show, please email us. You go to the Rogers TV site and click the show link. And until next time, thanks for joining us.